What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. Very, very, very special guest today, the one and only Nick Slavik. If you don't know Nick, this guy just brings house painting, restoration to a whole nother level, not only by the way that he, does the jobs. I mean, that's one standard that's, although above everyone else, okay, very cool. Other people do good work, but it's about how his company culture is ran, the apprenticeship programs that he has for his individuals that he dubs DHB, decent human beings, and turns them into craftspeople. What a great lesson that Nick provides for us here by joining us on the Contractor Secrets podcast. My suggestion to you is get your notepad out. If you're driving, take mental notes, come back to it. This guy's going to give you some advice that will transcend into your business and deliver you success because he's done it, he's doing it, and it was just a great episode. I mean, I had a page full of notes, just taking notes, soaking it all in. This guy's a wealth of information. So thankful for him to join us, and I really, really hope that you enjoy this episode. The big question you need to ask yourself every day is, do I own a job or do I own a business? And unfortunately, the majority of contractors out there own a job. That's right, they're a slave to their own business. But the other side of the fence is so much greener, it's so much better, and that's when you're finally fully in control of your destiny, your freedom, your time. And that's what Contractor Secrets is about. It's about taking back our time, building a business with systems, standards, values, procedures, putting yourself in the driver's seat. And that's what it's about. So I'm excited. I'm happy to have you here. Let's dive into the Contractor Secrets podcast. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Contractor Secrets podcast. I don't know how I did it, but somehow Nick Slavik decided that he would grace us with his presence and wisdom to join us today. And it's going to be a great episode because Nick is someone that I think most of us look up to in terms of processes, systems. That's what our motto here is about, is kind of figuring out what the secret is. So, Nick, I actually pinged a couple of my friends and said, hey, I got Nick coming on the podcast. What questions would you like me to ask him? The biggest question was, what is that training process like to work for Nick Slavik Restoration Co? We all want to know, what does it take to get somebody from a newbie apprentice to somebody that you consider someone you could trust to service your customers? Let's start there.
Yeah, man. So I feel that my life is, when I interact with other, bright minds like you, it's like a long series of unsatisfying answers that I have, because through experience, through data, through all this other stuff, I found that there is no shorts, really. It's diet and exercise. It's, you eat less, you move more, magically you become healthier. It's the same thing with a painting business. You do a certain amount of unsatisfying things and you get a good result. So the training is no different. The actual training, to me, is like putting the enamel on a set of kitchen cabinets. All the real important work has already been done by the time you actually get to that point. So a couple of weeks ago on the Ask a Painter show, I was having this conversation over and over. I actually made a list of things you need to do before you start bringing people into your company. And it's all the things you talk about, all those systems, all those processes, because the training part, by the time you get a decent human being in your company, if you don't have any of those other things in place, they're going to have a bad experience. But let's say you have all the things in place that you need to run a fairly successful business. You know how to estimate, you have a proven product, your job costing, you can hold employees accountable. When you actually get somebody in, they have to meet your core values. For me, it's always culture. People who come to me and say they have painting experience, it's almost a negative because I know what comes with that. So when somebody does come in here, though, we just started Apprenticeship 2.0, and this is basically a 1 to 2 week process now. It's as intentional, as formal as we've ever made it. The first week, we have two-day modules. The first half a day, they sit down with me and my head trainer, Parker, and we onboard them into the company. We introduce them to, all of our, Slack messaging and Google Drive and things like that. We safety train them through our kind of a formal safety training program. And then we introduce them to wall painting. So we're obviously in winter here. The two big things for me are painting cabinets and painting walls. So we have a 2-day module on painting walls. We have a 2-day module on painting cabinets. And we follow, and please cut me off at any time. I'm a loud
No, I'll
mouth
keep
and
it
I will
going, man. I'm
talk
taking no,
consistently.
I'm taking min. I'm reviewing this later. Go ahead.
So again, behind everything is 3 decades of experience overlaid onto this. So
Okay.
we introduce them to walls a special way. We follow the Doragi method, the demonstrate, observe, that sort of process where it's in the Army, they taught us, the crawl, walk, run sort of thing. So when we do 2 days of walls, when we do 2 days of cabinets, I walk them through on paper my SOP. My SOP checklist for a bedroom is 22 steps to paint a perfect bedroom. The training behind that is about 3 hours worth of like time-lapse photo and this and that. The most important thing in this training program is not to spit out a fully operational autonomous painter. It's to show them and focus their vision on what it's like to paint a bedroom. Because most people, I'm bringing people in who have never been in the trades, and they think, well, listen, I helped my parents paint. It took us 3 weekends to paint the bedrooms. And it's like, you need to wipe that from your mind, because this bedroom is about 3 hours.
Absolutely.
So
3 hours,
we need to show you what a 3-hour bedroom looks like so that everything you do trains up to that. So we'll show them. I actually walk through them step by step. We have 2 training bedrooms in our facility, mock bedrooms.
That is actually cool.
Yeah, it has taken apprenticeship to a whole nother level, because we used to sneak these people into our clients' homes, and we're quiet professionals. Nobody ever knew we were training because we have high decorum, all this other stuff, but we would train people on clients' houses. Now they get 2 days where the first day we walk and crawl through a bedroom together. I show them every little bit, every little thing. And in the afternoon, they actually start doing the bedroom on their own with another person who knows what they're doing, shoulder to shoulder.
Wow.
The second day, all they do is repeat it. And it's just circuit training over and over and over again. And then likewise, for the next 2 days, we do the same thing with cabinets. I bring them back into the war room. We go over my cabinet SOP. We walk through a cabinet, and then we do that. That's the first week. We have now introduced people to this. Culture is high. Another thing we're doing, Tanner, is we're looking for something we call MPC, mass personal chaos. If some guy takes 17 cigarette breaks during that first week, I'm not even going to let him go to the second week. You're never going to meet my people in my company. If you're late 3 days in a row, you either accept our training or you leave. The second week, all they do is they alternate, paint a bedroom, prep a kitchen, paint a bedroom, prep a kitchen, all shoulder to shoulder with my trainer.
Wow. And a couple of things I want to hit on. I actually took some notes, but I want to go back real quick. How often does that happen where you actually bring somebody into this incubator and then you see what you call an MPC happen? I mean, that's got to be rare.
Yeah. So what I find is that, so up until a month ago, we did Apprenticeship 1.0, which was I go out and I recruit decent human beings. I sniff out MPC the best I can, and then I hand them off to one of my people who does live my core values. And then we together try to sniff out that MPC. And I would say 30% of the people, sometime within the first 3 to 6 months, will show enough signs of MPC that I need to remove them from the company.
Wow.
Now with Apprenticeship 2.0, again, small data set. It's only been going for a month, but universally, the 2 people we kicked out of our first training module have never been happier, never been more well-informed, and never been more well-received by the company. So MPC could always rear its ugly head, but this is one more. Oh, actually, I will tell you this. Apprenticeship 2.0, interesting data point. We were actually supposed to put 4 people through it. There was a drywaller, a painter, and a decent human being. Painter and decent human being are now operating in my company. Drywaller and painter, when I told them he was hired, they were hired, I usually have a 2-week waiting period before they start Apprenticeship 2.0. That obviously gives them time to put a 2 weeks notice in. Both of their employers counter offered with about $1 more an hour, and they took it. And initially I was bummed out, but in the end, I realized, oh, if you were willing to be swayed by $1 an hour,
$1. Yeah,
it's like, and this is coming from me, Tanner, where if you stay with me for a year, you get about 150 hours of paid time off. You get health insurance, you get retirement, and you get a 4-day work week. And we were going at the end of that 1 year, if this person would have stayed with me, they would have made about $2 to $3 more than their employer was giving them. But all they saw, Tanner, was that $1 an hour. And I thought, you know what? That 2-week waiting period is the best MPC detector I've ever had, because these painters will come in and they'll jump ship for $1. Good. You didn't even make it to my company. I didn't waste training. Moving on.
Moving on for $40 a week. That to me is insane. I like DHB, which I love, decent human being. That's a great way to describe somebody with absolutely no painting experience, but you vetted them as somebody who's interested in learning the trade. That is extremely valuable to me. One thing that, really, let's go back, because you just blazed through this as if it's no big deal.
Sorry, man. I talk so much.
No. It's good because it's so natural to you. And I know that, these standards that you've developed. I used to work at a sushi restaurant. It was the hottest restaurant in town. This place was booming, man. And as a 17, 18-year-old, to make $150 in a night was a huge feat for me, coming from $7 an hour as a busboy, right? So I finally got the opportunity to get an interview here. But the process to actually be somebody that they would allow on the floor to serve the food was very strenuous. It was a process. You had to know the entire menu from front to back. Not only that, the off the menu sushi items that were the high dollar rolls. You had to know this, and they wouldn't let you on the floor. When I passed that test and I actually became a server, I valued that opportunity and that job so much more than if they said, okay, Tanner, you're allowed to go make money. Do you find that your other employees who see these individuals kind of crawling their way into the company through this basic training that you develop, do you see them kind of like have a little, not a chip, not a egotistical chip, but essentially a sense of pride, like I made it? And that's rare to have in our industry. Do you find that's occurring in your business?
Yeah. And not only does that occur, almost a sense of relief comes over, because 2020 was an interesting year, as we all know, and it brought out a lot of interesting traits in people. And the thing that gave this company the most friction was MPC. Yeah. Some brought on by COVID, some just brought on by the natural occurrence of MPC. And it really did stress out a lot of my core craftspeople in the company. Sure. And when I came up with Apprenticeship 2.0, I briefed them on it. I got their input on it. I said, wave the magic wand. What can I deliver you, a craftsperson in the field? And they basically said, please, like, introduce them to the tools, get them prepping, get them, just get them so on day one, they're not wide-eyed. And when we did put those people out there, yes, not only did that occur, a sense of relief is over my craftspeople now, because there are people who I've done a lot of the dirty work already to get them there as a favor to them. And now they don't have to worry about that added stress of introducing people to the trades. Now they can just further them. So,
wow. So it not only gives the apprentice something that he can be proud of, but it's also taking the pressure off of the higher level individuals who work alongside those apprentices, giving them a higher quality of, a work day where they're not having to babysit. So all that comes full circle, man. That is awesome. There was a word that you used, you called it Duragi. You only gave me three, you only gave me 3 parts of that. So can you tell me what that acronym means and how you use that in your business? That was pretty cool. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we actually do a little bit of a bastardized version of it. So there's a lot of things, like a lot of things I took from the Army, I took from college, I took from this and that, traction, all those other things. And it's fine, but I don't find myself adhering to them 100%. Maybe I'm just a little bit of a Bolshevik or something. But demonstrate, observe, demonstrate, observe, re-demonstrate, assign a task, goal set, and then inspect.
So demonstrate, observe, re-observe, assign, goal set, and then inspect.
Yep. The third step is re-demonstrate. So basically kind of what we do is, the demonstrate. I say, this is what it looks like. I bring their world into focus and say, this is what we're looking for. We always use the metaphor of the Lego set. If somebody just dumps out a thing full of Legos and says, build it, unless you have that instruction manual or a picture of what you're building, it's so confusing. So really what we do is say, here it is, the demonstration. Now you're going to observe me doing some of it. And then we're going to re-demonstrate, or you're going to do it. And then I'm going to re-demonstrate after you're done, because now once you start doing it, your brain thinks about it different and you start focusing on the minutia. Re-demonstrate.
I think that right there, that redemonstration, I think, for the individuals that actually have some sort of training, even myself, is what we neglect. Because what we'll do is we will demonstrate to somebody who has never seen it yet, right? And then they can't make an association after they've done it and they see it again. So that is what we're missing, I believe, in my own company and many others, is that we'll show somebody, okay, this is how you spray this, and then you do it. Okay. And then we'll observe and give criticism right there instead of showing it again and making that system happen. Is that kind of what you found? And is that why this is valuable?
That's it. And this is magic for people who've never been in the trades before. Apprenticeship 2.0 was a great thing because we brought somebody who shared our core values but had 8 years of painting experience, and we also brought one of our fresh-faced, decent human beings. And it was great to see the difference between the decent human being was basically being introduced to a 3M Handmaster. This is the most foreign alien tool you've ever
Yeah.
seen before.
Yeah. If
The
you weren't in the
painter,
trade and you saw this thing, yeah.
it makes your eyes cross. You'll be loading it for 20
Yeah,
minutes trying to get that plastic in there. The painter who came
absolutely.
in, we basically just took him and said, hey, you've been doing this type of painting for a long time. Look at this. Tell me what the differences are. And you could see him focus from what he knew before to something different and just say, oh,
Yeah.
so this happens here with this instead of this. And it was nice to kind of get both. Yeah.
Part of the reason why you are not, I would say you wouldn't hire somebody with a ton of experience, but you're reluctant to, is because of those old ingrained habits. People tend not to venture outside of their comfort zone, something that they've been doing for 20, 30 years. Again, you and I both know that I'm pretty sure that you want consistency in your business. Hard to achieve that without tape and caulk. Are you using tape and caulk for
Oh,
interior painting to
oh
keep the
yeah, man.
product consistent?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's interesting about painters is that if it was only a retraining problem, if it was only old dog, new trick thing, I think I could break them and get them to do it.
Sure.
The problem is, even more important is they universally say, there's nothing I want more than to learn from the best, to advance, to have this, and universally all do not follow through with that. So that to me
It's
is one
usually
more.
ego.
Oh, it's all ego. And I specifically address that for painters. I almost try to talk them out of coming on with us because I
Yeah.
say, listen, you're going to tell me is that you're open to this. And what you're going to do your first day is not be open to it. And I'm going to remind you of this conversation. So
Yeah.
if you say you're open to it, we're going to have a very intentional conversation. And
Yeah.
usually to me, that unwillingness to accept training is just one more point of MPC that
Yep.
I add to the pile of already there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And that assessment, again, starting off the relationship like that is going to wean individuals out. They're going to be like, I don't know, because they might not know you, right? I mean, I'm sure you get people that apply for you and have no clue who you are for the industry. So I don't know if that happens now. I mean, being as though you've been in Minnesota quite some time, has that happened? I mean, do people apply knowing who you are locally, or do you actually find people applying now that have no clue who you are, and you kind of have to show them, hey, this is how we do things. We have a high standard.
Yeah, so two thoughts on that. Nothing makes me more proud of this statement, and nothing makes me want to throw up into a trash can more. Nobody who works for me know who I am. I would say 98% of my clients have never heard of me. So people
Wow.
think I have this super easy go of it, like, oh my God, everybody knows Nick. Everybody forgets that contractors know Nick.
Contractors. Yeah.
People who own businesses know me.
Yep.
Painters who want to work for us do not know me, and definitely none of my clients do. So it makes me very proud that this is
That's
a
good.
pure experiment. I don't have any weird trump card up my sleeve. This is all
Yeah.
done with grit, just like everybody else. Also makes me very disappointed I can't capitalize on it better.
Yeah, true. But I know that you've even recruited some individuals in your professional network through your brand that you're building on social media. Has that ever worked out? I think maybe 2, 3 years ago, you were looking for, I believe, a salesperson or a project manager, and you put that out on your public Instagram that you connect with contractors. Has that worked out where somebody's actually come and worked for you that has met you through these channels?
One person, my
One,
estimate,
one.
Andy. Yep. And yeah, so Andy used to run he's a master crafts person, ran his own business for more than a decade, family business, and shut his business down, moved his family here and joined the team and is rocking and rolling now. That's the only
That's
data point
amazing.
I ever have that any of this stuff has played to my opportunity.
Hey, but that's a very important position, that estimating position.
Key
So
piece. Oh, it's insane, man. Yeah.
so let's talk about kind of the dynamics, and real quick, I do want to kind of get into you're not just Nick Slavik house painting, right? I mean, for me, when I try to help individuals kind of build some systems, I say don't take anything but one job type, because the estimating's different, the skill sets are different, the training is going to be different, the obviously, estimating and the time that it takes to do the jobs are going to be different, the process is going to be different. You need to get really good at one thing, and then you can expand. Nick, you probably do what, like 10 to 15 different job types? I think I watched you scrape the siding on a 150-year-old house one day, and then you're doing cabinets the next day. I saw you refinishing a cabinet door yesterday. How many different job types do you do, and how the heck do you manage all these different things with the scheduling? With, like, I know it's a very broad question, but if you can try to narrow it down, that would be helpful. What's the secret to that?
Yeah. So when I talk to guys like you, Tanner, I like to go super macro on that stuff and say,
Yeah.
if you're going to run what's considered to be a very large business in our industry, it's a micro business, but in our industry, only 10% of the companies have any more than 10 painters in the entire painting industry.
That's incredible.
So yeah, which is insane. Like you said at the start of the show, 80% of our industry is one-person companies. Right. So if you want to grow something much larger than that, I could not do it with only cabinet refinishing in Minnesota. We have super harsh winters. It does play a role in how willing people are to let us into their houses. You couple that with a global pandemic and kids virtual learning and parents working from home, we have never had to fight more and accommodate more than this winter. So what I want to do is have somewhere between 20 and 25 painters working year round. In Minnesota, most people go ice fishing in the winter and they just shut their businesses down. For me, I want to do as much, if not more revenue, October through March as I do in the summer. So if I just did cabinet finishing, I would have to turn out about 200 to 250 cabinets in that time. I don't know that I could sell that many of just cabinets. So what we do is everything else as well. And it's not just for business growing reasons. I am maybe to the point of being a martyr, in love with the craft. And I want to restore Victorian houses. I want to brighten wood. I want to do decks. I want to do inside, outside, fine finishing, gloss oil. I want to do it all, and it all interests me.
Yeah. In terms of training, though, I mean, you have a room in your shop. That is where we learn walls, trim, ceilings, doors, application. You have a cabinet training facility where we learn fine finishing cabinets. How do we make the transition to learn restoration? Because restoration is a different animal. You used a product yesterday and you were mixing it and and then you were telling us that it turns into a solid, and then the solid, it's an old painter's trick. Nick, you're trying to, I mean, how does that work? Because my mind was blown. I'm like, how the heck am I going to teach someone this? I mean, you're teaching old painter's tricks now, Nick. So I don't know how you're making that into a business. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so easy to explain. The first slide in my onboarding presentation that I show people right on that big screen there is a picture of a Leatherman multi-tool and a Special Forces Green Beret Soldier. The thing that those two things have in common is that they are 90 to 95% of everything that needs to be done can be done with those things. It may not be perfect. It may not be world-class. It's not a Mach 1 race car that's purpose-built for one thing, but it will do 90% of what residential repainters can do. And I want to train my people. If you have 4 to 5 principles of how things get coated, finished, painted, you can apply that to anything if you're a decent human being. And that's why we focus so much on core values and mindset, because, Tanner, we train 90% of what we do, cabinet, trim, walls, for interior stuff. After that is the weird stuff, the wallpaper stripping, the refinishing, the restoration, this and that. Somebody who's been with me for somewhere between 1 and 3 years has the mindset of a craftsperson, and they're that Leatherman tool that can universally adapt themselves to anything. And we don't specifically have to trade.
So you're the guy that gets the jobs that the painters in the area are afraid to take. So essentially you're the one, and would you say that you've capitalized on that as the, I would say, are you a monopoly in your area for restoration at this point?
Oh, not even close, Tanner.
Really?
Not even close. What's interesting is there's a guy named Jason Paris up the road. He runs a $5 to $6 million painting company. Does what I
Wow.
do.
How about that?
He again, he's my younger big brother who's doing everything better than me, and he is a savant. He has a spreadsheet that actually calculated how much of the market his business has.
Amazing.
As you know, like this is a long-winded way of bringing some perspective, but basically at my business stage right now, there's only 5% of businesses in our industry that are bigger than mine. And I don't take that as a sense of pride. People would think that I have monopolized Minnesota. And I will tell you this, a $10 to $20 million painting company. I am a $1.5 to $2 million painting company. A $10 to $20 million painting company will only have about 1 to 3% of the entire Twin Cities market here.
That's insane.
So less, and we would think, Tanner, my knee-jerk reaction, your knee-jerk reaction would be, oh my God, one of the biggest residential repaint companies in the entire United States is probably between $8 and $10 million that everybody knows about.
Yeah.
If that person operated here, you would think that all the other painters would go out of business. Technically, they would have less than 5% of the entire market share.
Well, one thing that I share is this, and this is, I mean, this is just, I didn't do any research on this. This is just me and my mind working as I drive around. And I say, we're the only trade, Nick, that can actually perform the same or greater value inside the house as we can outside the house. Roofers can't put roofs inside. Flooring companies can't put floors outside. Drywall contractors can't drywall outside. We're the only trade that can do that. With that being said, if the market is every homeowner, double that, and we have double the market of every single trade in the world. If I'm missing one, let me know, but I still haven't heard of one that can do both inside and outside, same or greater value dollar amount. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Along that same line, I've always had this quandary, like a single person painter. I mean, how many jobs do you really need in a year? Do you need 50? Do you need 75?
Right.
And the thought experiment is like, well, why can't we just stumble across 75 people to do this? It's harder than it looks in practice, which is interesting, right? And I think even with $1 million company, you're going to need 375 and 400 jobs. And you start thinking about the market value of that. The market value of painting is 1.1 billion in our tri-state area. Why can't I get 1 million of that? And you think this is going to be the easiest thing in the world. It's actually very hard in practice.
Very hard. And it's the balance, right? It's the balance of first, you can spend, I tell people this, you can spend, $100,000 on leads and get, 10,000 leads. But that means nothing if you can't produce 10,000 jobs. That's the trick, right? It's like a solid leader can balance all areas of marketing, production, and sales. And that's what you've done. And I love what you've done in terms of you have this like system running in production that takes somebody from nothing and makes them to the standard of which they need to be. No one is greater than the whole, which is very important. And when I say that, I mean, obviously my question to you was, Nick, you showed me a video yesterday of you doing some really crazy application method to restore where the hinges were on a cabinet door that have faded after so long. And you're telling me that your system doesn't rely on you to be the only one that can do that. And that is so valuable, especially because the problem that we discussed, the owners of these painting companies believe that they're the only ones that can provide a quality result. But you say that's not the case. I created an apprenticeship system that teaches somebody from ground up to do everything that we can do as long as they are a DHB.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that talking about universal principles, I took my 2 craftspeople, one of my highest performing teams, and I introduced them to that process for cabinet doors yesterday. And I showed the whole world what it looked like. Now, what's interesting is that the conversation behind that is, hey guys, I'm going to show you a really unique use for that thing that we do all summer. You know how we restore decks and outdoor furniture? We're using that same chemical. We're just going to do it on cabinets today. And you mix it up differently, it does the same thing. So again, universal principle. We used the same sack of chemical from Florida to do decks as we did those cabinet doors. And instantly their craftsman minds focused and they said, oh, easy. This time you make a paste out of it. It's easy.
Building confidence. Let's pivot real quick. I really want to touch base with you on Again, getting into the dynamics of winter, I would say half of the individuals that follow me, I'm very thankful that they do, are from up north, and they always ask, Tanner, what do I do in the winter? I've never found a strategy because guess what? I'm in Florida, Nick. I don't have a strategy for that. I paint exteriors year round. I'm very spoiled, so I haven't had the hurdle. We do deal with rain though. I mean, that can be a
Oh
hurdle,
yeah.
but it's never longer than usually 3 or 4 days, as long as it's not a hurricane, going on. So,
Yeah.
what is the winter strategy for individuals listening that want to be like you? They don't want to lay their guys off. And the reality of the situation is, what do they do by default, Nick? They go and they hire subcontractors because they don't want the responsibility of having to keep them busy. So they
Yep.
want to create company culture. They want to have employees. How do they get through these winters? What is your secret? Because your goal is you want to keep 20 to 25 individuals working throughout the winter. That is a rarity. So what's the secret?
Yeah. So another one in the long line of unsatisfying answers, which is you need to produce more leads, and you either do that by your labor or by your dollars. And early on, I would suggest that people do it by their labor. Right now, I don't have enough labor to spread around, so I do it with my dollars. If you subscribe to sort of industry benchmarks, I try to keep my marketing budget to 3.5% of total revenue. So
Agreed
if you
with
do a
that.
$1 million business, I try to keep my marketing budget to $35,000, which sounds like a lot, but the strategy that I use is painters in Minnesota and in the upper Midwest in summer do not need to market. You will have a full schedule by May every single year. So it would be very stupid of you as a business owner to waste some of that $35,000 there. I spend my whole war chest October, November, December, January, February, March. 6 months. I take that $35,000 and I expend it for a $1 million business. This year, it'll be close to $70,000. I do direct mail in that time in targeted neighborhoods for 6 months to drive those extra leads.
So
And
you're not.
it's not, oh, go ahead.
No, I would say, so let's start. So direct mail is your lead of preference. You're not doing anything on Google, nothing digital. You're just sticking with direct mail.
Yeah, so I did 2 years of experiments over the last 2 winters. And all I care about, Tanner, is the cost per completed job. And some people, a lot of people rely on the cost per lead number. I don't care about that. I care about produced. When guys brag about how much they sold, means nothing to me.
Nothing.
How much did you produce? So my metric is cost per completed, sold, done job. And Google ended up being $1,300 per job last winter.
Really?
It was not a great spend of money. Now, what
Per
Google will tell
job?
you is, hey, do this for another 5 years and you'll build up that cachet with Google. And I said,
Right.
not interested. I can't
Yeah.
spend $1,300 a job. Facebook and Instagram, you can pull a lever and spend some money and make leads come out of that, but the leads are not as serious. So my closing
Right.
ratio went way down. And
Agreed.
the instances of non-estimates is, when you get a hold of somebody and you try to line up an estimate and they just never respond, or they say we don't need it, or we found somebody else, was very high. So again, it's like you can make leads show up and you could say, here's my cost per lead, but they're worthless. We didn't produce hardly anything. I did a guerrilla style of direct mail. So this is not print a bunch of postcards, let somebody mail them out. This is a hyper-local company that puts a rubber band on each one of my postcards, walks it up to a door or a mailbox, and
Wow.
physically either sticks it inside or puts it on there so the client has to interact with it. And we
Wow.
go into targeted neighborhoods of my core demo.
And has that worked?
Yes, it's the thing that's driving, I would say,
Wow.
so interestingly enough, if you look at the 12-month period, half my business comes from word of mouth referral past clients.
Right.
And the
And
other
that's
half
continuing to grow, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, always. If you continue to run a business, hopefully that will continue to
Yeah.
grow. The other half are things that I have to force and pay for. And of all the things I've done, I cannot reliably run a business off the other forms of marketing. And as I grow a business, I need to be attentive to the apprenticeship program. So the alternative is, if you have to do money or labor, I wish I could do the labor where we print off 150,000 flyers and walk them to every house.
Not
I don't
yours,
have
of
time
course.
for that.
You don't have the time.
Exactly. And that's what I would do if I didn't want to spend $70,000 this year. But I
So-
don't have the time, so we do that.
So from a overlooking standpoint, and this is where we're going to bridge, and I want to be respectful of your time. This is probably going to be the last part of this. From an overlook standpoint, you're really good with job costing. You commented on someone's post the other day. You said job costing is the foundation of your business. You can do anything with job costing on your side. Tell me about your job costing. Tell me about why that is so important to you, when you started doing it, where the big epiphany was. I don't know if you started doing it right out of the gate or it was a time where you were just like frustrated and as I was the same. So tell me about why that's your, I would say, one of your greatest, attributes to success in business.
Yeah. So job costing will answer every question that anyone has ever asked you, Tanner, about this. What do you charge for X? How do you schedule? When's it time to hire? Yeah, any of that stuff, any of all the questions that you and I always get, they'll all be answered by some form of job costing. I was shamed into job costing years ago because I, like every other person in our industry, is like, I'm killing it. My people produce twice what everybody else does. We make twice as much happier clients. We're making twice as much net profit. I'm killing it. You guys have no idea what's going on out there. And somebody said, oh, interesting, because I run a very big, prosperous business. And if you're an outlier, I would like to learn from you. And that was a feelings-based statement, and there was no data behind it. Wow. And so when he made me apply data to it, it was a come to Jesus moment where, you know what, Nick, you are full of it. That is, you are doing well, but not as well as you think you are. Wow. So now you actually put some data to it and you have to force yourself to look at it and make decisions because there's some things that aren't working. So that's how I was shamed into it by somebody who knew much more than me, and I'll never look back now.
Yeah, of course not, because there's a lot of confidence when you know where your numbers are. I think people get this confused, Nick. They'll hire an accountant. The accountant will provide them either a monthly P&L or a yearly P&L, but that doesn't tell us anything other than all the business expenses. Some guys who own a sole proprietorship LLC, they're buying their shoes on that account. They're paying for their electric bills on that account. They're not separating exact job costing. Where I'm not going to expect that out of them. We're all guilty of it, but ultimately we need to have something separate in order to do that, so we can actually narrow down that paint that we use, that product we use, that lead cost, that labor that was applied to that job. Obviously for two reasons. One, we could see if we're overselling and not, converting people the way that we should, or if we're underbidding after the job's done, we can identify exactly what I'm sure you do is go to your project manager. Where did we mess up here? Where did all this paint come from? Right? Is that something that you regularly kind of do in terms of checks and balances?
Yes. The other part of all this stuff is human accountability drives everything. So SOPs are completely worthless. Job costing is worthless if you don't hold somebody accountable to it. So every Monday morning right here, my two production managers job cost every single job that was completed the previous week. We go over every one and we find trends. That's where we can find, hey, our cabinet jobs are killing it. Our whole house trim projects need some sort of improvement. That lets me know that it might be good to get in the field with the people and sweeten up that process. So it's a really good come to Jesus moment. And since we do it weekly, we can pivot every week and change what we do in order to improve.
Yeah, and without waiting for that month end or that year end to occur where
or taxes,
it's way too late.
I mean, if you wait for your tax accountant to tell you if you made any money, you'll not be in business.
You will definitely not be in business. So it takes a, that feedback loop is quick. Cause again, being able to narrow it down. And one other point about this is because you do this, you've been able to create roles inside of your business that are, many people struggle with, right? Like, if you're a project manager for Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration, one of your responsibilities is job costing and looking at data. If you didn't create that in your business, that's one less thing that they do that they could be doing, and you're paying them to do their job. And it just, that's one less role, right? And your job as a business owner and leader is to create roles, responsibilities, accountability, and all these things. And again, I see why you say that job costing is the foundation. That I'm a huge fan of job. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's after you do it, you're like, I'm stupid to never not do this. I was flying. I was running a business based on feelings, the weather, moon phases, whatever the hell else. If you had a bad meal for lunch, all of a sudden you get down on your business. It's just like you can't. And especially Tanner, the best example is you go on 3 estimates in the night, and 3 clients right in a row tell you you're too overpriced. What do? You go back home and you completely tear up everything you know about pricing and have your price, and you do all these crazy things. And if you have the data, the job costing, you can actually say, no, actually that's an accurate price. Those people just weren't going to use me. So
let me ask you this to piggyback on this. And some people have different ways of seeing this. You employ 25 people, Nick. So I don't,
Mhm.
I'm very, very, very interested in hearing your answer to this question. Okay. Do you negotiate your prices if you need the work?
No. Um, when people ask for discounts, I say no because I like pure, clean data. I have gone through every winter, I think about the proverbial 10% off coupon sort of thing. And I have always gone back to, okay, if I'm going to take 10% off every job that I'm going to do this winter, it's likely that I will take off the equivalent of $75,000 of revenue. Now, is it a better strategy to discount your work $75,000, or is it better to spend that $75,000 and get more leads? To me, I will bet on leads every
Yeah.
single time. One of those leads could be a $30,000 trim project.
Got it. So
You
the
know?
idea is that you would rather reinvest what you would be discounting anyway to generate more opportunities that are going to convert to the margins of which you have built your business on, which although it's not the quick, easy way, it's the way that you know is true based on your ability to calculate data and to see these things that it works. You have confidence in your marketing, which gives you the confidence to not lower your pricing because you know ultimately more opportunities leads to more sales.
And Tanner, if I'm being honest, I have no proof in my own data set because it's so hard to suss out. And no other painter has ever produced reliable data to me to show that discounts made all the difference in that stuff because you don't
Absolutely.
know. Maybe that person was going to take it anyway.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like I know when I pull the lever on direct mail, I'm going to get a certain amount of leads. You pull the
Yep.
lever on discounts, who knows what the hell is going to come out of that?
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great feedback. Nick, man, such a pleasure having you today. And I kind of wanted to just give a little shout out. Nick does a weekly live Ask a Painter. I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't, you have to because you're very consistent with this. I mean, I think every Friday since I was a little kid, you've been doing this, man. I've seen it every Friday. Tell me about Ask a Painter, man. What can we expect if somebody checks out Ask a Painter?
Yeah, man. Weekly live show, Facebook. I've been doing it for Fridays for almost 5 years. I've recently done a little run of Saturdays because people were
Oh,
complaining that I got to work. So I've been going coffee in the war room on a Saturday morning, and we have done some pretty amazing interactions. The interactions have 10x since people are actually not working during the show. So I'm going to weave it in there, but the basis of it is we can go deep on the molecular structure of oil primer. We can talk what we're talking about here. We can talk about human accountability, entrepreneurship, anything in between. We can talk about Victorian restoration. I love the coding science. I love the business part, and any and all question. I've never been stumped, or I can't find you a resource on it. And I also I share a lot of my resources too when we talk about things to build your business, especially job costing. I've handed out hundreds and hundreds of my templates for that stuff just to get people going.
awesome. So every Friday, Ask a Painter live. Now, real quick, you're affiliated with PCA. I see you tag them a lot. Do you have a role in PCA, or are you just kind of a trusted partner? What is your role there?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I got involved with the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. It's a nonprofit trade organization, an advocate for our entire industry. And that's where I got shamed into job costing.
Wow.
I showed up at my first PCA expo. There's 500 to 1,000 people there from all over the world. And I thought it was going to be a whole bunch of people like me who were there to talk about primer and stuff. And the first two people I met ran a $9 million painting business. The next person
Wow.
I met ran an $18 million painting business. And you can imagine the conversation like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a house painter. They're like, yeah, me too. How many guys you running? Oh, 180. I'm like, oh my God, it's just me. Like, okay, so now we got to learn a little. So, but those are the people who took me aside 4 hours at a time after dinner and basically just gave me the whole rundown. And they called me out on all my BS. They enlightened me to the world of what it is to be a leader, an entrepreneur, and a master craftsperson. And it just
Wow.
blew my world open. And you can see the hockey stick curve, from when I got introduced to the people there to there. So I'm a huge fan just because all the people like you and me are there, Tanner, and they're thought leaders.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if somebody wants to join the PCA, easy to join at PCA. I'm sure there's a little bit of a filtering out process. The next event is in Orlando, I think in 2022.
Yeah, it's just like everybody. It's this rolling sort of like, hey, let's plan an expo, and then
Yeah.
it doesn't happen, and then you're like, yeah. So in lieu of that, I've actually joined up with the PCA, and we're filling a calendar of in-person events for myself across the country to sort of
Really?
do maybe 10 to 30% expos all over. That's coming together and probably be released in the next couple of weeks here.
All right, man. That's super exciting. Hey, Nick, thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. I got a whole sheet of notes here for myself, and I'm sure if anybody is wise, which I know anyone listening to this is, you'll take Nick's advice on some of the things that he said. Thank you so much, man.
It's awesome opportunity. Thanks, Tanner.
All righty. Hey, I just want to take a second to thank you for joining me here on the Contractor Secrets podcast. I'm just going to take this opportunity to let you know that my passion is coaching people, helping people. I've changed my Instagram name to @contractorcoach, and I did that because that is my passion. I want to help you. So please reach out to me. If you have an issue going on in your business, send me an email. Find me on Instagram, message me, and let's do a breakthrough session. I want to work through your problems in your business to help you get to that next level. And one thing that I always say is this, the difference between those that get over the humps and the hurdles in business is just a change in perspective. And that's what I plan to offer you. So get with me, message me, allow me to help you take your business to the next level.